Can you guys hear me? Just want to check my audio.
Yes.
Yep.
You're good.
Great, thanks.
Good evening, everyone. We'll start our
transitional kinder and kindergarten town hall for parents and guardians and staff shortly. We just want to give all of our participants an opportunity to log into this live event tonight. So we will start in approximately 2 minutes. Good evening. My name is Anthony Toronto, and I am the Executive Director of Student Services for the Redondo Beach Unified School District. On behalf of the Board of Education and our Superintendent, I would like to welcome you to the TKK Reopening Schools Town Hall. Prior to today, staff and families had the opportunity to submit questions that will be answered by one of our panelists tonight. I'd like to introduce the people who you will hear speak tonight. Our Board President, Mr. Brad Serkin, Board Vice President, Ms. Raymer Flynn, our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Stephen Keller, Deputy Superintendent, Admin Services, Dr. Annette Alpern, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Dr. Nicole Wesley, Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, Dr. Susan Wilds, Program Director of the Child Development Center, Ms. Teresa Van Dusen, our Chief Technology Officer, Mr. Derek Kinsey, Principal of Toledo Elementary School, Dr. Tanaz Bruna, Principal of Bernie Elementary School, Ms. Mira Bascaron. And also, we'd like to welcome Dr. Alice Kuo, who has an MD, PhD, MBA, and UCLA Medicine Pediatrics Preventive Medicine doctor, as well as a local leader for the American Academy of Pediatrics. Now I'd like to take this opportunity and turn it over to our Board President, Mr. Brad Serkin.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for attending this evening. We have lots of good information, and I believe what the district administration has come up with as far as options for your kids, everyone should be very pleased. And know everybody's been working hard on this. So welcome to the town hall, and we look forward to getting all this information out to you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Brad. Now a few words from our Board Vice President, Ms. Raymer Flynn.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. We are proud and excited to offer our TK and kindergarten students the opportunity and the option to return to our campuses safely. The reopening think tank, our administration and school board has been working tirelessly since March to make sure that we can continue learning and education opportunities virtually and in person as soon as was safe. So we're excited to be able to share the results of that planning process here with you tonight. And if you have any more questions There'll be lots more information passed to you, and you know how to reach your principal and anyone that's part of this to get your questions answered. So I thank you for listening and for being part of RBUSD.
Thank you, Raymer. And now our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Stephen Keller.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Just a reminder, as we start this evening, we'll be sharing with you the information that always starts out like this. We have returned already about 1,000 students to our campuses in various forms, and we'll be sharing more about that later. So I want you to take a deep breath and understand we've been returning kids gradually since June. And so we will continue this safely, and we'll share that with you tonight. I want to remind you, go on our website, www.rbusd.org. We've done some great revisions thanks to some great parent input, and you'll see a more streamlined, user-friendly website with information that will cover anything from our COVID-19 dashboard to our reopening think tank to a host of distance learning pieces that you can indulge in. So please take a look. Also, I want to just really thank our administrators, your administrators at your school site. I don't know if you knew this, but since the closure, back in March, your administrators pretty much been at their school site every workday until now. Of course, they may have had a summer break, but they have been there each and every day, and I want to applaud them. I also want you to drive by any elementary school in our school district at any time during a school day, and you'll see a very full parking lot and a large majority of the staff there. Most of our teachers are working from their classroom. The ones that aren't working from home, everybody just doing a great job. So I want to acknowledge our great teachers, especially our elementary teachers, your teacher. And whatever we share tonight, this is the big piece I'm going to start with. Whatever we share can change. One thing we've learned in COVID is that we have to be agile. And so we receive new information each day, each week. And so please understand the information we're giving you today could change in the next few days, in the next week, or in the next month. So with that, we make the best decisions based on the best information we have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Keller. I want to pull up another graphic. Dr. Keller kind of alluded to it a moment ago in terms of the timeline and implementation of in-person services for students. As he mentioned, we have safely returned over 1,000 students onto our campuses, dating all the way back to early June when we opened our child development centers. And at that time, we had about 167 students, and we've now grown to over 450. And so you can see from this timeline here, we have gradually brought students back safely to all of our campus and our staff as well for in-person services through June, August, all the way through September. We started bringing back other vulnerable populations, including our students with special needs, our English language learners. So we have students on all of our campus. And recently we brought back students to our RBLA, which is one of our alternative educational programs. And so as you can see, we've taken a very strategic approach. We have very carefully brought back students since June, and I don't want to miss out that we've also returned our student athletes to our campuses for conditioning only. And so we have been working on this for quite some time. And so as you learn more tonight through the question and answer period, you are going to see and learn more about how we are well prepared for our return to campuses. And so I want to give everybody a little bit of data before we transition into the actual Q&A. I want to let everybody know that first and foremost, thank you for joining us again tonight and for submitting questions in advance. We had over 150 individual submissions into the Google Drive, giving us some valuable input to help guide us tonight. So based upon those responses, a majority of the folks want to really understand the learning models. What are the options that are available to families as we transition back into hybrid? Families also want to know, what are our health and safety protocols? What are we doing on our campuses to ensure the safety of all? And our safe and clean facilities. What has been our process? And again, I use that frame of reference dating back to June. This is something that we've been working on for months now. And then also, what are options for families needing childcare? What's going on with our child development center? And so all the questions were read. They were edited to take out individual specific information, so nothing's identifiable to any student or any family. They've been combined or synthesized when necessary, so that when we address the categories that receive the most amount of submissions. Please note, again, we received a large amount of questions. Everything was read, as I mentioned, and we're trying to address the most pressing questions that are in the minds of staff and families. So we won't be able to answer every question based upon what we've received, but as you heard from Ms. Flynn, Dr. Keller as well, you can go to our website for more information, and you can always reach out to all of us. One of the things I think we pride ourselves on here, we're down the beach, is customer service and us getting back and working within families. And so with that, we're going to start off first with our learning model, and I'd like to introduce Dr. Susan Wilds. She is the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Service, who is going to walk us through and clearly define the two learning models. And so with this, I really want to remind people to please pay attention, because she is going to answer a lot of the specific questions that were submitted to us just based upon her sharing the options that are out there for families. So Dr. Wilds?
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Toronto. Can you, as I get started, if you'll pull up for us our visual for the learning models. So we want to welcome everybody tonight. Like Dr. Toronto said, we had hundreds of questions submitted to us that we have combed through again. In addition, when we sent out the family survey, there were a lot of open-ended questions. We want to assure our families we read every single one of them. We read them twice. We read them 3 times. We coded them for what you were collectively trying to tell us. And one of the things that we have learned is that there is no one right answer for families. We get that. We hear you loud and clear. So we want to talk tonight, and I want to tell you that we're going to give a lot of information tonight. It can be very overwhelming for families. You may have to, this recording today will be live on YouTube. You'll be able to watch it again. We will also be sending out a revised reopening plan that clearly illustrates everything we're going to talk about today. So you'll be able to access that as well to help you make the decision. So one of the things we learn from families is that they love their teachers. They love their teachers. They appreciate their teachers. Their children have really connected with their classroom teacher over the last few months, and that is so important for us. But what we've also heard from a lot of families is that for a lot of our families, they are ready to come back. We are ready. My child is ready to come into the classroom because learning at home is really difficult. A lot of our families are also saying we want to remain with my child's teacher, but we are still fearful. We still may have someone living with us who could be very susceptible to getting illness. So we want to make sure, so we hear that. And so what we're going to go over to tonight is it's going to look similar to what we presented this summer, but there's some very fine distinctions that we want to make sure that we point out. So let's first talk about option 1. Option 1 is our hybrid in-person model. This is where most of our children online right now are on. They are in the hybrid model. It just happens to be 100% at home at this time. So your child is receiving instruction from their classroom teacher. So now as we start to bring back our TK to K students as a vulnerable population, your child is now going to have the option to physically attend school in person as a very strict cohort. So a cohort of no more than 12, 2 to 3 days a week. And why is it 2 to 3? Because we're going to alternate on Mondays, very similar to how we explained this summer. We're going to allow students to come in person 2 to 3 days a week, only on their assigned cohort days. So it's going to be kind of a struggle to remember, which cohort day you come, but we do need to make sure that we abide by all the county health protocols, and so we keep that cohort stable. Your cohort is going to be limited to 12, like I stated, and it's going to have no more than 2 supervising adults. This option model will also now include students who really want to maintain and remain with their classroom teacher. However, health concerns, fear, personal concerns at this time prohibit them from coming in person at this time. And I like to use the term yet. We want our child to come back in person. However, we're not ready quite yet. And that's totally okay. So your child will have the option to remain in option 1 with their current teacher. And on their in-person days, if your child is cohort A, they can just choose to stay home and remain in distance learning. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how that will look. This allows also in the event of illness or symptoms or contact with a confirmed case, students would then also remain home and they would follow distance learning procedures. Same school day, same schedule as that they're seeing now. On non-cohort days, again, they would continue on distance learning. On non-campus days, that schedule is really important. still going to follow what your child is used to now. And so this is going to give them the greatest level of consistency. They're still going to log on at a designated time in the morning to get their attendance, to get their live whole class in-person social emotional connectedness. That's really important. That being said, as we transition in, we are going to have a teacher who's going to have a cohort of kids in front of them. So we want to make sure parents know these are children who've never been at school before, so that strict 8:30 time may flex a little here and there as we get our kids back onto campus. We are asking parents to make a full year commitment. Full year is encouraged. We want our children to have stability for the year. These cohorts, again, are stable, and there may be some additional asynchronous learning that students could engage in after lunch. This is traditional grading, just what they're used to just right now. And there will also be some dedicated intervention and tutorial blocks that would be virtual in the afternoon. We are telling parents that we are still requiring daily attendance. We are still requiring daily participation. But again, the important part to note is kind of that second to last bullet. That's why we're kind of putting it in there a second time. This model includes all students wanting to remain with their current teacher. However, health concerns are prohibiting a return at this time. We will say to parents as I talk about the second model, if you are a family who does not see yourself sending your child back into the classroom at any point in time for the rest of the school year, we're going to highly encourage the option too. We want to make sure that this hybrid model is we are making sure that we are establishing stable cohorts and we're welcoming back kids as they're ready to come back. One also thing to note is the very last bullet is as our teachers are learning how to have kids in person and on the computer, that's tough. It's tricky. It's anything we've ever done before. And just like we gave our teachers grace as they were learning distance, how to be distance learning teachers, we need to give them grace as we learn how to deliver instruction, both in person and online. So that will most likely continue to utilize technology as the main source of instructional delivery. So your children are going to bring their iPads into the classroom. We still need them accessing Seesaw. We still need them accessing a lot of these really great online learning platforms. But their time in person is going to also incorporate activities that your classroom teacher just probably for the last 3 months has just been thinking, if I had just had these kids in front of me, we would have done this. And so that's what you're going to see is a slight difference. So for students who are choosing to remain at home, we do want to make sure parents understand immediate accessibility to the teacher while she has kids in front of her is going to be limited. Obviously, I think most of our families online can understand that. Option 2 is what it's always been. This has completely remained unchanged. Option 2 is 100% online learning through schools PLP. It is a virtual curriculum. Students work through the curriculum in the program on a very independent pace. They do have daily live meeting for attendance and social emotional connections. All grading and assessments are via this platform, and they take all 4 subjects through schools PLP. We are asking parents if they do want to make this, they need to let us know with at least 2 weeks notice prior to the beginning of the next trimester. I want to point out though, just like before, transitional kindergarten students do not have the option for option 2. Schools PLP just does not have a transitional kindergarten curriculum. That being said, for transitional kindergarten families, option 1 is your option, but you can either decide that you're going to stay home on your cohort days or come in on your cohort days. And we're going to be soliciting that information from our school principals. Same thing with dual immersion. Dual immersions, there is no dual immersion in schools PLP. So for dual immersion families, it would remain just as they are now. Again, choosing to return in person 2 to 3 days a week, or just stay home on your 2 to 3 days a week. Dr. Toronto, did I answer most of your questions?
Yeah, I believe so. Could you just clarify again? Because I know we had some people come in late. Just kind of the second bullet point regarding students having the option to physically attend on their days or not.
Absolutely. So this is a really important. It's so important we put it in here 2 times because we wanted to make sure we clarify for families. If you are a family who wishes to remain, who wants to remain in the hybrid model, we want you back. But we understand that many families at this time still may be slightly fearful and they're not ready yet. Yet is the key word. So if you're not ready yet, that's absolutely okay. Your child is going to have the option to remain with their classroom teacher. You will stay in option 1, hybrid, but on your in-person days, you can remain home. That being said, if you are a family and you do not believe you're going to come back anytime this year, we highly recommend option 2, 100% online.
Thank you for clarifying that, Dr. Wilds, because I know in some of the submissions for questions that that was a question that came up with families. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing here for a moment. And then we're going to go back to the questions that we received. And I'm going to turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Keller, with our first question. So, Dr. Keller, very specifically, we received a question on who is returning on December 14th and why was this date selected as a start date, especially considering the surge in COVID-19 cases? And then if you could describe the process that led to this decision.
Thank you. And Dr. Wilds did a great job describing, I think, one of the most important pieces we're getting asked from parents. I hope the majority of parents are happy with that. TK students will attend school, some for the first time, under the LA County Department of Public Health, what they call the vulnerable population guidance. And so we can return up to 25% of a school site's population under the vulnerable population model. And we have been very clear that targeted special education students, targeted English learner students, and now we're targeting TK students who clearly sometimes struggle with engaging in this distance learning model. So that is how we are doing this. It's separate from the whole waiver process. It's under the vulnerable population model. So we wanted our students to come back. Our goal was to bring students back before winter break. But we realized at the same time, we have parent-teacher conferences. So we were trying to find a sweet spot to bring our TK kids back that would work for parents. The model that Dr. Wilds just described provides our TK parents the ability to come back that week of the 14th. If you want to show the timeline too, Dr. Toronto, just pop up that timeline. It also shows the timeline of how we've rolled this out. You can. If you want to wait until after winter break, that's fine for the in-person experience. We have you covered either way, but just the proposed timeline we have here, we had a board meeting November 10th where we talked about this and the board provided us direction. We had a TKK town hall meeting with our teachers, or an information experience with our teachers. We have our town hall tonight. We'll give a timeline that the team will share in a little bit about choosing option 1 or option 2. I think folks are going to feel a lot more comfortable with that experience. And then our teachers, this is important to note, that December 10th and 11th, our teachers need to get prepared for the return of this in-person synergy of home and in front of instruction. And so we are going to have 2 days of asynchronous or non-live teaching from our teachers. Our teachers will be obviously getting prepared for our children's return to the school site. And then on the week of December 14th, our TKK students will return. I want to remind people, yes, there is a thank you for that, Dr. Toronto. Yes, there is a surge. Anybody can, see that. It's quite unfortunate. It's tough information to read on a daily basis. I will tell you, I was on a call this morning. I'm on multiple calls each week with LA County Department of Public Health. Their guidance to us is to continue forward if you believe your schools are ready. I remind our parent population that every one of our school sites has been visited and approved for opening by the LA County Department of Public Health. We had impeccable experiences with the LA County Department of Public Health. They're very impressed with the manner in which we've already brought back over 1,000 students. And so I will tell you that their information that they've provided to us is continue doing what you're doing if you believe your schools are ready to reopen. I think the model we're providing for you that Dr. Wilds just shared with you gives the parents the option. If that week doesn't work for you, we understand. And that's an individual decision for the family. And I just remind you that since June 11th, and I know Ms. Van Dusen will share this, but since June 11th, our CDC, Child Development Center, has been open under a similar model that we're coming back to. And, fully disclosing, my child has been in there 8 hours a day, almost every day since June 11th, every, a work day that is, and getting a great experience. So I think that summarizes that question, Dr. Toronto.
Very good. I think you answered this already, but just in case anyone missed it, what if families don't want to return students on the 14th and they would rather wait until January 4th, 2021?
Sure. Two points I make. Great. Yes. Want to thank our teacher leaders, our teacher association. Want to thank our board. Want to thank our administrators for coming up with this model. What we do, this instructional model for the option one, we watched, listened, reached out to Orange County school districts, San Diego County school districts that have already reopened, learned from what they did well and didn't do well. And so what you see before you tonight is obviously learning from best practices that are already in place. And that's the model we want to embrace moving forward.
Thank you. And I know Dr. Wesley also wanted to add something to this, if that's okay. Dr. Wesley?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one point because we did have a town hall with our teachers, and that we're excited to be able to give this option to parents and whether or not they want to return their student on their in-person day. We also want parents to understand in terms of the expectations that if their child doesn't come on their in-person day, then they still will have a lesson given to them by the teacher. It could be an asynchronous lesson, meaning it could be a non-live lesson, or it could be a live lesson, but we just need parents to understand that if a student is not coming in on their cohort day, then they may not have direct access to the teacher on that day. However, they still receive a lesson in some form.
Thank you, Dr. Wesley. And Dr. Keller, we received a question in regards to the waiver application. So families want to know, does the return of TKK impact our waiver application? If you can talk about this process and why 3rd through 12th was not included in the waiver.
Let me start. Yeah, great. Let me start backwards. On the call today with Department of Public Health, 3rd through 12th grade is just not on the immediate radar. That's not our decision. It's not a school district's decision to make. But we will obviously stay apprised of any new information, and that obviously can change. And then the second part, I would just share that in the way of the waiver process, we have not been approved for the waiver. The TKK return, again, is under the vulnerable population guidance, and it does have a 25% cap. Hence, we stop at TKK. And when we are informed that our waiver is approved, we will work with our board for a return date for grades 1 and 2 under that waiver process.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Keller. Now I have a few questions for Dr. Alice Kuo. As I mentioned at the very beginning, Dr. Kuo is a well-respected leader in the medical field, and in particular with the American Academy of Pediatrics. And so it's great that she's part of our reopening think tank team, because she provides us a lot of input and guidance, especially being out there in the field. So Dr. Kuo, as a leader in the American Academy of Pediatrics, what guidance can you provide families and staff around school districts following all the safety protocols for a safe return set forth by the LA County Department of Public Health?
Yes, thank you so much for having me here. What I can say is that the American Academy of Pediatrics has been concerned for quite a long time now about the long-lasting negative impacts of prolonged school closures on child health outcomes. So we have been advocating for reopening schools safely as soon as it's possible to do so. What we know about COVID-19 in children is that children can get the infection, but at a much lower rate than adults. And our experience here in Los Angeles County with over 1,000 schools open and quite a few numbers of children back in schools is that cases and outbreaks happening in schools do not seem to be driven by child transmission. So it is that schools are reflections of the community transmission, and that adults are most likely to be the ones to bring the infection onto a school campus. And that's to say that we all need to do our part to try to decrease the community transmission so that our schools stay safe. Over the last 6 months, I think we have learned a lot about how to keep schools safe. We've learned from our experiences in the clinics, in the hospitals. And as long as schools have the adequate resources to implement effective infection control, such as universal masking, social distancing 6 feet apart, adequate ventilation, and good symptom monitoring, we can really decrease the likelihood of any transmission of COVID-19 on a school campus. I will make a statement about plexiglass because I think that comes up not only in this school district, but other school districts. And plexiglass is sort of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, the concern about implementing a lot of plexiglass is that it gives people a false sense of security, because what we really want is 6 feet of distance in between individuals. And if there's plexiglass, unfortunately, people may be lulled into this sense like, oh, well, there's a barrier, so maybe we can shorten that distance. Maybe it can be 3 or 4 feet, and we really want that 6 feet. And so plexiglass has not been shown to be like an evidence-based measure. It's not recommended by the LA County Department of Public Health or any county health department. But I do understand that people bring that up as a question because of the concerns, about being in a enclosed classroom. And so I just wanted to reiterate that the infection control measures that we do know work are universal masking, social distancing, adequate ventilation, and then also symptom monitoring.
Thank you, Dr. Crow. A question we received recently as well as part of tonight's event. Any advice you can give families as we enter the holiday season and people are traveling?
Oh, yes. So I know that many families are sort of heartbroken to learn about the recent surge, and the holidays are such a time for family, and I love Thanksgiving. It's one of my favorite holidays as well. This year, though, if we want our children to be safe, if we want everyone to be safe, with the current surge that we are in, it is really not advisable to travel for Thanksgiving or to gather. And so, our county health department and the state has issued guidelines to try to decrease the likelihood of transmission of virus with gatherings. And so, as hard as it is to hear, really what we should be doing is spending it with our immediate household and maybe virtually with our extended family members, and really not traveling, and really trying to do, each one of us doing our part to decrease community transmission so that our schools can stay safe.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Again, we appreciate you being here this evening with us. All right, so now we're going to move on to some more health and safety questions. Dr. Wilds is going to answer this question in regards to describe the screening assessment that will take place at school.
So this is a really good question. So I want to tell parents right off the bat, you are about to be inundated with these 5 questions more than you can ever imagine. They will be coming to you virtually. They are hung on the side of our buildings and our gates and our entrances. These screening questions are critically important for every single family member to do on a daily basis with their child prior to coming to school. Just like Dr. Quo just mentioned, the screening is one of the most important things that we can do to ensure our schools are safe. Our staff members answer these questions before they come to school every day. They're showing us either their green screen, showing that they've passed these questions. And so those questions will be done. So before we even talk about getting to school, parents need to have these questions at home. And if for any reason these questions are not passed, your child needs to stay home. And that's the commitment we're asking all of our families to make if they are opting to return to in-person hybrid learning. That's really critically important. So we are going to send out, and we're going to share a video of what school will look like for your child, starting at your home with these screening questions, all the way to school and what screening will look like. Once you've asked your child these questions at home, you're a no to all of the questions, then you're going to come to school. At that point at the gate, parents will not be in any way, shape, or form allowed onto campus. Your child's temperature will be taken. And if they are good to go, then they're going to be allowed to come to their classroom.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Wild. And just to kind of recap for everyone, a reminder about going through these screening questions at home. And if you answered yes to any of those, then you need to stay home and you need to notify your school immediately. Temperatures will be taken at the door. Parents, we are asking, as you are bringing your student to school, please remember all the guidelines that Dr. Quo just mentioned as well, with 6 feet of physical distancing with other parents, no gatherings, and always wear our masks when we're on campus. Next question, Dr. Wild. What happens if a student or staff member gets sick after the start of the school day?
They are on their way home. So family members will be notified immediately. We have set up a separate isolation area for that child or that staff member. Staff members should hopefully be able to get home themselves, but for your child until a parent or guardian is able to come pick them up.
Okay, and what steps will be taken if there is a confirmed case of COVID-19, and have there been any confirmed cases in RBUSD?
And that's a great question. So Jessica Soberling, who's our Executive Director of Special Education, oversees all of our nursing staff here at the district. And she is on the phone with LA County Department of Public Health on a daily basis, making sure that we are up to date with the newest and the latest protocols that seem to change fairly quickly. But we follow all directives from LA County Department of Public Health regarding any exposure. And when we say that, we mean we literally get on the phone with them. We walk through the case and what was reported, and we follow their directions to a T. Any person who's deemed exposed will be contacted almost immediately and provided a letter with the language that we have directly from the LA County Health Department from our district nurses. The larger community will be notified via email, but the priority contact, obviously, is first to be those who are directly exposed. Any confirmed case that has impacted a site is also going to be reported on our district website via the COVID dashboard. So families, when you log into the RBUSD website, you're going to see a new tab at the top that says COVID dashboard, and you're going to click on that, and it will be currently active with any and all cases at a school site. We have only had one confirmed case that required a cohort to quarantine at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Wilds. And I know one of the questions that's on the minds of many parents, it's what's it going to look like on that first day when we go to school and we want to drop our child off and we want to also go back and pick them up? Dr. Bruna, could you help us with this question?
Sure. Hi, good evening, everybody. So this is actually going to look different at each of our school sites because we all have varied entrance points and exit points of our school site. So families will definitely get much more information from your specific site principal regarding this. Many of us are using our valet lanes to have our parents drive through and drop your student off. Obviously, we will have adults out there supervising. However, we all have different points of entries depending on the student's grade or what classroom they're assigned to. So your site principal will communicate with you what that first day will look like in terms of where to drop off a student, what time. There will be a window of a drop-off time. We are asking that families obviously, we want great attendance habits, even in this time period. So, we say that school starts at 8:30, and we mean that school starts at 8:30. So, I understand that sometimes people have to be tardy, and we will have procedures in place for that as well. However, we ask that you help us and honor and develop those great attendance habits. And then students will be socially distanced as they're getting screened through our various points of entry. They'll meet their teacher, whether the teacher will be accepting them in the classroom or will be waiting for them at a gate. And then at the end of the day at 11:45, same thing. We will have varied dismissal times so that it will prevent a lot of traffic flow and everyone can get home safely. So definitely be on the lookout for more communication. Principal.
Thank you, Dr. Bruna. So in addition to the academics, one of the key aspects of school is socialization and students having the opportunity to connect with their peers. Mira Bascaron, the principal at Bernie Elementary, is going to talk to us a little about and answer this question regarding what will socialization and play activities look like on campus, and will they be allowed, and what can students do during their breaks?
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, that's a great question. We do know a big part of school is the socialization piece. Obviously, it will look different in this environment. So one of the things that the principals have been very hard at work is just looking at our playgrounds and determining, which areas can be used by students and determining, the various areas and then assigning cohorts to those areas. So for example, one classroom cohort cannot play in the same area as another. So I could have Ms. Smith's class playing in area A and Ms. Johnson's class playing in area B and have that rotation throughout the day. Now, after the students play in the play areas, we do have protocol for sanitizing and ensuring that the areas are clean. Some of the equipment the students will be able to use it. And again, as referenced earlier, CDC's been on campus, they've been using our play structures, balls and things like that. Some of the areas obviously like using balls, students will be able to only use those balls individually and not play with other students, and the balls get sanitized right after use. So those are some of the things that we're currently working out. Again, every school will look a little bit different in terms of which areas will be designated for which cohorts, but what we do know is we're following the guidelines and ensuring that cohorts do not play together.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing, kind of summing up a little bit what Dr. Bruna and Ms. Bascaron shared, is there'll be very site-specific information that will be shared with all families, letting them know of the entrance ways and exit ways, as well as the different cohorts and where they'll be playing and what will be accessible during the day. So I know families will be looking forward to learning more about this in the upcoming weeks. Dr. Bruna, will students be expected to wear masks all day, or can they wear a face shield?
Yes, we will expect our students to be wearing masks all day. That's one of our guidelines that our staff follows as well. Even when we're here without students, all of our staff is wearing masks around campus to be safe. And we have a lot of parents that ask us, how are you going to enforce that? And I always like to say, hey, it's just like any other rule we have here at school. So the great thing about TK in kindergarten is they've never been in school before. And so all these rules that they're going to go over the first couple weeks will be new to them. And so wearing a mask and the mask expectation will be built into those expectations. And we will handle case by case if we have any issues. And of course, reach out to parents. We are going to ask parents to please provide an extra mask with your child when you send them to school. We will have some here at school as well in case a student forgets one or it's ripped or gets dirty, anything like that. But we will ask you to provide your child with 2 masks when they come to school. Students can wear a face shield as long as the bottom is covered. They can also wear a face shield with a mask as well. We do also understand that we do have special needs students that often, due to sensory issues, cannot wear a face mask. So we will work with those students appropriately to make sure that they are also safe. Our classroom teachers will also go over with students about mask breaks. So we will have designated spots where they can, take a step outside, pull their mask down, give themselves a little break, and then get back going.
What if a student will not wear a mask?
We cannot have our students not wearing a mask unless it is part of a medical reason that we've known in advance.
Thank you. And I also want to highlight, I know we bring up CDC a lot, but again, knowing that we've had CDC students and staff on campus since June, and they have been wearing masks, and they have quickly adjusted to this new normalcy for now. And knowing that there are mask breaks that throughout the day provided to them, there have been no issues with students on CDC wearing masks. Thank you, Dr. Bruna. All right, moving on to safe and clean facilities. Dr. Alpern, our Deputy Superintendent, will teachers and staff be provided PPE and cleaning or sanitizing supplies?
Yes, absolutely. As Dr. Keller mentioned, most of our staff has already been working on our school campuses 5 days a week for months on end. And so they've already been provided with the PPE and the cleaning supplies since their return. Depending on the staff member, they have different types of PPE that they are provided. But all of our staff are provided with masks, face shields if they request it. Teachers can have sanitizing supplies if they want in their classroom. But we also have, if you work in the health office, you've got gloves and gowns and more medical grade masks. If they're working in child nutrition, they're wearing gloves and masks. So depending on the kind of work that our staff members do, really differentiates the type of PPE that they'll be wearing every day.
Thank you. Here's a question that we did receive from a few families regarding HVAC systems. And what do we currently have in schools that will mitigate the airborne aspect of COVID infection transmission?
Well, the CDC does state, and you heard Dr. Quo mention this tonight, fresh air is the preferred method for air circulation. So we are recommending that our teachers keep windows and doors open as much as is practicable. However, our HVAC systems in all of our classrooms have been upgraded with the CDC recommended gold standard, which is the MERV 13 filters.
Thank you. When will classrooms and restrooms be clean and sanitized?
So the restrooms are checked and cleaned at the top of every hour during the school day. They will receive thorough cleanings every day after school. Our frequently touched surfaces within the classroom will be sanitized, like when students go on breaks during the course of the instructional day. But again, they will also have the thorough cleaning every day after school.
Can you talk about the products that we're using?
Yeah. Aside from soap and water, which is, a good standard bearer, we use two different products. Our custodial staff uses two different products. One is called Super 60. It's a one-step, it's a multi-purpose disinfectant and deodorizer cleaner. We also use a product called PC 30, which is a food-grade disinfectant, which we use on to sanitize the non-hard surfaces. And both of those products are EPA approved. So we do not ask parents to provide any kind of help with sanitizing products like Clorox wipes or the rest. Those are not EPA approved for use in schools.
Thank you, Dr. Alpert. And then what additional safety protocols have been set up at each site already?
I think you've heard from two of the principals talk a little bit about the egress and ingress at the schools. We do have signage at all of our entrances and exits. We also have signage throughout all of our campuses, reminding our students and our staff about social distancing, about hand washing, about the equipment that is off limits. We also have 6-foot decals on the ground, which will be at every entrance. So that will be a very visual reminder for students to be like standing on the circle to know there and be able to gauge that 6-foot distancing. We do have directional arrows that have been painted on throughout the campus on all of our campuses. And the intent of that is to provide one direction flow and to ensure that there isn't bottlenecking on the campus. I mean, obviously with kindergartners coming on, it's one thing, but we will be bringing back other students. And so, we've planned for that future as well.
All right. And the last question I have for you, Dr. Alpert, we know that many families have come to rely upon our meal service. Will meal service still be provided during the hybrid model?
Yes, absolutely. We will continue to provide meal service for all of our students at 4 campuses: Redondo Union, Adams Middle School, Madison Elementary, and Alta Vista. And families can pick up those meals for their students, grades K through 12, at any of those school sites. However, with students returning to campus, our child nutrition department has also provided the option of grab and go meals for the students. So when the kindergartners are on campus, they'll be able to pick up a grab and go meal on their way as they exit the campus. If they are participating in CDC, those meals are delivered to the CDC classroom. So they will be in the CDC classroom for the students to get at the end of the school day.
Thank you, Dr. Alpert.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving along, I'm going to go to Dr. Bruna. This is kind of a separate question, but it's how are students being cohorted? I know in the submissions, a lot of families are wondering what's been done already or what will be done to kind of help families cohort, especially those who may have been quarantining with other families.
Sure, yeah. We had many families communicate with us over the summer prior to knowing kind of what school was going to look like and when we were able to bring students back. However, the number one way that students will be cohorted is by last name. And that's simply because we have many families with siblings at various levels, middle school, high school, and we want to ensure that those families are on the same cohort, on the same track. Another thing that we're looking at our school site is our students with special needs who receive special education services. We want to make sure that they are also cohorted together so that our specialists can pull them at the same time and kind of keep those true cohorts in a safe manner. And you'll be receiving information regarding cohorts. I figured that was your next question, Dr. Toronto. You'll be receiving communication regarding your child's cohort on December 4th from your principal. So we will be sending those out to families, letting you know whether your child's a part of cohort A or cohort B.
You read my mind, Dr. Bruno. Thank you. Dr. Wesley, will teachers have their own classroom, and will there be any additional aid support for teachers to assist with things such as the restroom or breaks, instructions, start and end of the day?
Yes, thank you for asking that question. Yes, teachers will have their own classroom, and guess what? Here's the good news. Everybody's AM Kinder this year. So let's enjoy that. You don't have to worry about trying to get the AM or PM or whatever works for your family. Everybody will be AM Kinder. Again, you'll receive more information from your principals about that. As far as instructional aids, there are some classes with instructional aids, and that's always based on student needs. We do have classified staff who are assisting on campus in various ways. They've been there since the summer working. We really appreciate them. We'll see them helping with screening in the morning, helping out as students are arriving to school and leaving school. There'll be staggered start times, dismissal times, break times, and so there'll be staff to assist. And if there's ever a need in the classroom, then a teacher can simply reach out and somebody will be there to help right away. I also want to point out that most kinder classrooms, I believe almost all, but I'm just going to say most just in case, do have restrooms attached to them. So in terms of the TKK return, that shouldn't be an issue. And as we bring the older kids on campus, again, there's always assistance if needed. But let's remember, there's going to be half as many students there on any given day. So, the potential for a need for assistance is likely not going to be there.
Thank you, Dr. Wesley. Okay, now we're going to move on to questions specific to what Child Development Center options will be available to families. So I'd like to introduce our program director, Ms. Teresa Van Duzen. So Ms. Van Duzen, the first question we have is, will RBUSD continue to work with CDC for childcare on campus? And if so, will it be what it was before COVID, including costs involved and the daily schedule?
Thank you, Dr. Toronto. So as Dr. Toronto and Dr. Keller already mentioned, CDC was able to safely open on June 11th with 167 kids in our program, and we then expanded in September. So yes, we are currently working to continue offering childcare services to our families. However, it does not look like what it looked like prior to COVID. Given the guidelines that we have from the County Department of Health, we can only have 12 kids in a cohort. So that limits the offering of our schedule and our fees currently.
Will kids that are in the CDC 5 days a week be provided after school care options on their hybrid day, or at least best allowed to finish the day in their CDC classroom?
Yes, as of today they are. 2 weeks ago, we were not going to be able to do that option because of the cohorting, but the county has since come out and said that children can participate in 2 cohorts, 1 cohort for their elementary school schedule, and then 1 cohort for childcare. So our current CDC families will be receiving a letter from us tomorrow telling them what the hours will be and what their options are, but they will have both the full day and the after school care.
Very good. Ms. Van Duzen, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to share, if you don't mind, I know you gave me some input earlier today, a visual for our families who are watching right now to get an idea, if you don't mind taking a minute or two to review this.
Right, and that's kind of what I just was mentioning, is that we will be able to offer both the full day and the after school care. So students that are in CDC now will be able to attend from 7:30 to 4 as they currently are on their at-home learning day, and after school from school dismissal until 4 on the days that they're in person with their elementary school teacher. There is no change for our students that are in our program full day for the grades 3 through 5 at this time.
Thank you. I just want to kind of point out a few things here. This is an actual CDC classroom at one of our school sites, and you're seeing some of the things that we've already talked about. You see and these are, I believe, first graders here. These are students wearing their masks in the classroom. You see on the ground the markings with the painter's tape for 6 feet, and you see students engaged. You see students who know a routine that's been established, and they have been doing this since early August as they've returned back to school. in the CDC environment. And so I know many families are thankful for CDC. I am one of those families, and this is great news that due to the changes, CDC will still be able to offer and provide a service to our community.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and I have one more question for you. Are you accepting new enrollments?
Space is limited, but we do have space at some of our sites. So if there's families that are interested or just have questions about our program, they can email us at cdcenrollment@rbusd.org, or they can visit our website, and any questions we'll be able to answer.
Thank you. All right, so we have a handful of questions left, and they're kind of in a bunch of different categories. And so I'm going to call on some of the panelists here who you've already heard from, and maybe some you have not just yet. And so Derek Kinsey is our Chief Technology Officer. Derek, can you share what are the technology resources available in the classroom to support students and teachers?
Sure, great question. We do provide a plethora of services for our staff and students. We do have technicians that are assigned to the school sites that help the teachers set up their technology for distance learning as well as in-person learning. Before our kindergarten students return to school, we'll be going to each kindergarten classroom to set it up to make sure they're ready to go for December 14th. Also for our parents on our website, and specifically if you go under the 2021 Reopening Schools column to distance learning tech support, and you can click on the left-hand column where it says iPads, since our kinder and TK use iPads. We have helpful videos as well as tutorials on how to troubleshoot the iPad. For instance, we have a couple of issues with iPads that they say that they need to reset. We can teach you how to reset the iPad if there's some kind of connectivity issue in your home or whatnot. We do update that website on a regular basis based on what we hear is going on out there to create those instructions. So do check back often. And that's how we do provide technical support. But as well as our teachers will also put in a help desk ticket for your student's iPad if there appears to be some type of issue.
Thank you, Mr. Kinsey.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Wilds, how will services be provided to students with an IEP in the hybrid model?
Yeah, that's a good question. So each individual student has an individual education plan. That plan outlines their specific needs and service goals. So there's not really one right answer to how it's going to be delivered across the district. Our school site principals will sit down with all of our service providers, our learning center teachers, our speech, our OT, anyone who works with our students, and they will be working on creating an individualized delivery schedule that works for their school site.
Thank you. And I believe some of these things were already covered by a few people, but just to kind of reiterate, Ms. Bascaron, what are the class safety guidelines and expectations?
Yep, sure. So we'll continue to follow the public health guidelines, such as desks are 6 feet apart, students are facing forward. Our teachers are going to facilitate hand washing routines for our kiddos. We need to make sure their masks are on. And we do have social stories that teachers can deliver to students so that they can continue to remind them to keep those masks on. Students will have their individual materials, so no sharing of those materials. Areas with seating in the classroom, as Dr. Toronto shared with that picture, where we have blue painter's tape that really distinguishes seating areas and kind of staying within your area. And of course, as mentioned multiple times, our cleaning protocols that will continue to be in place.
Thank you. Dr. Bruno, what about class parties? Any food-based parties or celebrations, will they be allowed?
We have always been following the guidelines for the Alliance for a Healthier Generation at our schools. And so we have all moved away from food-based incentives and parties and things like that. So especially in these times, there will not be any food-based parties or celebrations. Our teachers, though, are super creative, and I'm sure that they will find ways to have celebrations in their classroom. They've already found multiple ways to celebrate virtually. So we will find ways to celebrate birthdays and things like that without involving food.
And I appreciate you saying that, because I know all the schools have worked really hard to create that normalcy and the connectedness with the traditions. And obviously having some sort of celebration or recognition for students in the class is important. So it's great to hear that you'll continue to look at those opportunities and be creative. And so, Ms. Bascaron, will students be allowed to bring water and snacks to school?
Absolutely. We encourage your child to bring a bottle of water that's already been filled. As a reminder to follow the guidelines, all of our water fountains and things like that have been closed off, so they will not be able to refill at school, but they can certainly come to school with a bottle that's already filled. In terms of snacks, we do ask that you send a healthy snack with your child. And most importantly, please ensure that whatever material or bag they're in, that the student is able to open that on their own. So practice at home and keep practicing and ensure that that bag or container that they have, they're able to open it on their own. But yes to both.
Yeah, great advice about making sure students are able to open their lunch boxes or the Ziploc baggie. And so developing new routines and rehearsing them at home before they get to school. Thank you for mentioning that to everybody. And we're winding down here. So our last question, I believe it's already been addressed in a multitude of ways, but Dr. Bruno, what will the physical environment look like inside the classroom?
Yeah, so remember, half of our students will be on campus each day. So if you have a class of 20, we're looking at 10 student desks that are in the classroom. So they'll be set apart 6 feet. Our custodians have all done a great job of helping our teachers figure out what 6 feet looks like, rearranging furniture and things like that. Students will not be sharing material like we're used to in the past, especially at the younger age. Typically they would be sharing glue, scissors, things like that, but our teachers are going to work to create individual boxes or pencil boxes that students will hold their individual items in that they can leave at school and then take out when they're back in school on their cohort days. Of course, any shared material, if it's manipulatives or anything like that, will be sanitized before another student has access to it. And then our classrooms will definitely be sanitized daily. And any high touch areas like Dr. Alpern referenced earlier are being cleaned and sanitized at the top of the hour.
Thank you, Dr. Bruno. And so as we start to wind down tonight's town hall, I'd like to welcome back our superintendent, Dr. Keller.
Thanks. Thanks everybody for joining us, and thank you to our panelists. I learned tonight, paying attention here a little, Derek Kinsey, our tech person, is the only person that doesn't wear glasses in our group. So something I learned new tonight. CDC is sending a letter tomorrow, Child Development Centers, and I am sending you a letter just summarizing a lot that you heard here tonight. And be sure to refer folks to our website as much as possible. We're really putting a lot of great information there, as I shared earlier. And I just want to remind our parents, especially if you're a new parent, many of us that you see here tonight have children in this school district. We choose this school district. It's a great school district. We have confidence in the school district. We've been doing this with our CDC already. We've been bringing kids back. So I want you to just feel comfortable and confident in bringing your children back. We will take good care of them.
Thank you, Dr. Keller. And so on behalf of the Board of Education, our superintendent, and our panelists, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. I do hope that we were able to address the most pressing questions as we prepare for a safe return of TK and K students and staff to campuses on December 14th. Few reminders, and Dr. Keller just alluded to them as well. Visit our website for more information. Here you're going to see the revised opening plan that Dr. Wilds mentioned earlier. You're going to see our new COVID dashboard. You're going to see tabs for a reopening think tank, so you can see all the documentation and things that have been worked on as part of the RTT group. You're going to see parents as teacher chats, so trying to provide our parents resources to help them in the home with their children, and FAQs that we're working on updating consistently. Dr. Keller also mentioned look for a letter from him on the learning models that were discussed today, and your site principal reaching out to you regarding the learning model option that will be available to you as TK and K families. Again, for example, each school principal will send you a letter where you will elect which learning model you would like for your child, with hybrid being the default. So if you don't choose one, you'll stay enrolled in the hybrid model. And as a reminder, recording this event we post on our website later tonight, and we appreciate you joining us. Thank you again. Be well, stay healthy, and have a great holiday season. Thank you, everyone.